Cause we know that they might not ever come back. But this is how we ride, this is how we do. Riding mud, sliding up higher in the groove. Don't give a damn about the cash we're spending. With the time we got, we choose to play it on the go, to stay out on the run. We all high, wild, and handsome. Ain't telling you what's right or wrong or what to choose. Hey, but this is how we do. This is how we do.
Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen, we are here. We are here today. Oh, let's settle this up, straighten that up. That looks a little better. And the high limit hit list schedule is out. It has been released. So both national sprint car series that we are just now getting used to in the sprint car world. Of course, they're used to this in the late model world. I'm sure there's a lot of late model people watching us laughing right now. Like, what's the big deal? This is normal. But we're a little behind them as far as like relevance within, I don't know, fame of the sport. But regardless, it is interesting what is going on right now, because not only did you have the high limit schedule come out, but there are some things within this schedule and things I saw previously actually that was posted today. It seemed like a bunch of tracks started releasing their high limit events. We saw Davenport Speedway release it last night. Oh, I gotta say a big apology. Yesterday on the World of Outlaw video, apparently I said something like the Natalie Silva Sather was running or helping Sellens Grove get back on the map, doing a big deal, but she's just a media person. Obviously, the Bakers over there doing all this stuff. I know it just slipped my mind, but last time I was there, that's who I dealt and talked with was Natalie. So regardless, back to the topic at hand. I saw a bunch of people release high limit news last night and this morning prior to this schedule actually being posted within the last hour, and I kind of got pissed at some things I was seeing. You know, one of the headlines out of Port Royal, or the whole outlaw schedule in this Port Royal debacle, funny enough, with Sellens Grove involved, was the story I was hearing was that the Outlaws said had pulled their show at Port, and then in result, Port pulled the late model show from the Outlaw from their event. And we have been hearing this notion that tracks are being forced to choose between high limit and the world of Outlaws. And that was kind of the explanation to Port Royal fans, PA Posse members, as to why the Outlaws were not returning to Port Royal. That was kind of the general understanding. But that is falling on its face right now. Before I get into the schedule personally, I do want to give a big shout out to the Open Wheel Showdown. I don't know who watched practice last night. Of course, it is on Speed Sport, so a lot of us Flow and Dirt Vision people. I don't know if that was the greatest platform for them to reach a bunch of people, but it is only $24.99 to watch the 2-day $50,000 to win asphalt. It is, but wing sprint cars, and they are getting after it. Go to their Facebook page and check out some of their videos. I was going to show it, but Speed Sport flags my videos along with Flow. Dirt Vision, hey, I mean, y'all haven't really done that. Although I still dispute on the back end, and it gets removed. It just takes a little bit when it comes to Flow and Speed Sport and stuff like that, because commentary is legal. I mean, I don't understand where everybody else thinks, you know, this other stuff is just normal and all these people making name off my life. There's no such thing as what you're talking about in the normal world, but we're in this niche world where people just kind of control it. And that's what we're kind of talking about here today. And there's some battles. But I did wanted to point out this speed sport situation simply because I was actually contacting some of the people involved, because this open wheel showdown page that you see right here, I've never experienced this with the Knoxville Nationals, Kings Royals, anything on dirt. But I got 2 friend requests from Open Wheel Showdown and Open Wheel Showdown Live, and they are being plagued right now with fake, false streaming platform services trying to come in here and get you to buy their streaming service to watch the Open Wheel Showdown. It is rampant. Even the Open Wheel Showdown page itself, you go onto it and you can't comment unless you've been following the page for 24 hours. And I'm assuming that's because we've seen that in the comment sections, other fake streaming services trying to come in and take over and kind of say, hey, we're the streaming services, watch it here. But for some reason, this Open Wheel Showdown is getting plagued by fake live stream links, and it's interesting. But regardless, this show, if you want to watch it, I plan on watching it. I've never really purchased a I have purchased asphalt. Well, not asphalt streams. I guess if purchasing flow is purchasing asphalt, I guess it kind of is. But I am going to be purchasing the weekend package, which is $24.99. You could purchase that today. But stay away from these fake links. They seem to be plaguing this Open Wheel Showdown, which everyone seems to be halfway looking forward to. It looked really badass. I know the cars weren't on dirt, but they were hauling ass, that's for sure. On to the topic at hand. I was just talking about, the reasoning behind Port Royal losing their Outlaw event, because this notion that we have been hearing, it's pick this side or that side. And then this morning, I saw this post, and I got really, really hyped up over this event. I think it's going to be amazing. When we were going down the Outlaws schedule, Riverside International Speedway. And they posted this, and I saw this, and I was like, whoa. These PA Posse guys who had this explanation of pick us or them have an issue. If I was y'all, I would have an issue with this. Now, I'm really looking forward to this race. Riverside, I'm sure the people in management and the actual people working the track, they are not a victim. They are becoming a victim of this issue, but they're not the perpetrator or the reason for this issue here. But we see here on Riverside International Speedway's date or schedule that they released, pretty impressive schedule. We see High Limit Racing on August 9th, and we see World of Outlaw Racing on October 25th and 26th. Now, obviously, those dates are a little more spread out than, High Limit, potentially, obviously being at Tuscarora the month before the projected, or month-ish before projected Outlaw dates that usually were at Port Royal that are now at Selinsgrove. But regardless, the notion was pick one or the other. And we're seeing here, that's not applying to everybody. Why it applied to Port Royal, that's a whole nother story. Maybe it's because it's a hotbed area. I'm not sure. Maybe that's because there's a lot of, I'm sure the politics of the Pennsylvania racing scene is unbelievable. It has to be worse than the Mennonite situation. But at the end of the day, if I'm a Port Royal PA Posse member fan, and that was what I was told, and then I see this, I'm upset. And then let's get to the actual schedule here. So High Limit does come out with a 60 race schedule, 19 different states. Let's just see what some people's instant reactions are to that in the chat. We see Travis Johnson's a little bit happy. He sent a super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Oh, but it was retracted. So a retracted super chat. Interesting. Never seen that before. But hey, if y'all want to send $2, send $2 all day. I'm a $2 holla guy, kind of guy. Regardless, let's get back to the situation at hand. So 24 schedule, 60 races, 19 states. I don't know the symbolism and the numerology there, but we're going to keep on scrolling. Multiple $100,000 to win events, 3 totaling here. Let's get this zoomed in a little bit more so you can read the screen better. Oh, a little bit too much. I know some people like to read along. And sometimes I make a mistake reading. Hey, this is that Texas education for you. The slate is highlighted by marquee events, including the 100,000 to win Joker's Jackpot. So that's going to be the 2-day show prior to the King's Royal. Remember that race prior to the King's Royal in years past used to be called Joker's Wild. It looks like that has now turned into Joker's Jackpot and is 100,000 to win. Not historical big one. That also played a factor, 100K to win. But this is kind of in that slate. And then the 100,000 to win Gold Cup, 100,070. I don't know who's researched the number 17. That's pretty bad. But 100,070 to win Gold Cup Race of Champions is at silver dollar now. And then, of course, we saw the post yesterday by Skagit, 100,000 to win. That was making its rounds. Blake Anderson, everybody, Kevin Rudine, everyone over there doing a bunch of work on the West Coast. But we're going to be talking about that as well today. And then Skagit, and then the Tuscarora 50 announcing 57,000 to win. If that's coined because Kyle Larson's 57, to say he owns that place is scary. The multiple 20,000s, multiple 50,000s, but let's get down to the schedule because there is some good things about this. It's not all bad. I mean, and obviously the whole Port Royal Outlaw situation seemed to be influenced by the Outlaw side more so than the high limit side. And that seems to be the situation. I know I've heard a lot of people say, there's room for 2 national series. And you've heard Brad say, we want to work together. But I have a feeling that the Outlaws don't want high limit. I mean, maybe y'all feel there's room for 2, but the World of Outlaws, it seems like, don't feel like there's room for 2. They feel like there's room for them and then a sub-regional series like the All-Stars, and that makes them happy. The 2 on the national scene, it seems like they are not for that. But here's what we got, and this is actually for the benefit of the World of Outlaws right here, these first few dates with the high limit series. I mean, you got, for instance, let me show you what I'm talking about here. On the World of Outlaws schedule, you got the February 7th through 10th, kicking off Florida Speedweeks, technically, at Volusia Speedway Park. And then they have that month gap that they had last year between that first date and the Volusia return on Bike Week. But High Limit has slid in there and definitely helped this out, definitely helped them out in a way. And I almost think that the 4 dates, I mean, and this is for the Outlaws' benefit. Don't you want a lot of cars at Volusia? Maybe in February you just push off those 4 Can You Race Somewhere Else dates and allow it to happen because you got the following weekend. I believe that's the following weekend or following days. Actually, it's a Monday, Tuesday. Sorry about that. Following days, Monday, Tuesday, 12th and 13th at East Bay for 10 and 15. Final races at East Bay. That's going to be important. And then the following weekend, I believe that is. The next week, that is. They skipped that weekend and it's the following week. February 22nd and 24th at Golden Isle. So a later date in February. Usually that we've been hearing that was going to be a Tando race of the Lucas Oil Series, the late models. We'll have to see how their schedule comes out. Usually that Golden Isle late model event is in January or very early. So in February. So I don't know if that's going to get switched around. Maybe it will. I know weather's always kind of plagued that scenario in and out. It's been iffy. So maybe going to a later date with the late models is smart here. But that's actually benefiting, I think, the World of Outlaws to have these dates to where 410 teams can stay down there in Florida between that Volusia date in February and their Volusia date on Bike Week. I mean, these 4 dates right here should be open for Outlaw drivers for the benefit of the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series. And this is what, Brad Sweet was trying to talk about last year. We want to work with the Outlaws. They were hoping to let them be able to race all of them. The schedule kind of bounced around the Outlaw schedule, was going to help them in a way. But the Outlaws didn't go for it. That's why I'm back to, potentially, y'all may be thinking that everybody wants to be together, but High Limit may be okay with the Outlaws being around, but I don't think the Outlaws are okay with High Limit being around. And then next race out of Florida, we see it here. And it's a midweek show. Regardless, it is at Riverside International Speedway, a track that has a World of Outlaws date as well on Tuesday, April 9th. Now, maybe the scheduling went back and forth here. Maybe the Outlaws already had a date and it was a signed contract deal, and then High Limit came in here and popped a date on. I don't know. But if the notion is pick one or the other, it's not looking good. And you don't really want to piss off the PA fans because of how much power and influence they have in the sport. I mean, I would assume that probably 65, 70% of the streaming audience of the World of Outlaws and even this high limit situation outside of the PA area when they're not in town is PA fans. That's how big that fan base is. I would almost put a guarantee that it's at least 50% of the streaming audience is located in Pennsylvania. Now, obviously, we see a lot of people from different areas that don't get sprint car racing that have tuned into it. Obviously, some NASCAR fans converted by Kyle. Obviously, California has a good fan base. Obviously, Iowa and the upper Midwest has a good fan base. But that PA fan base is huge. So when I see this, and that was the reason, that doesn't look good. Regardless, we do go back down to the South. Seems like Texas is getting some 410 sprint car racing. I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to do. Maybe that's why I was just accidentally clearing my ear. Maybe that's the sign from God. But they go to Texarkana 67 Speedway. Tim Crawley doing some amazing work down there. That's a quarter-mile track. Very exciting racing at that track. Then Texas Motor Speedway. Once again, I don't know what they're going to do with the dirt at Texas. I just hope that that's been fixed. The dirt at Texas Motor Speedway, I believe it's why XR pulled out. It's why a lot of people have pulled out from racing at that track. And the ability to fix the dirt was going to, or do something about it, was astronomical in spending amount. Once again, I do think the greatest idea is find out whoever bought Devil's Boat and bring that dirt over there. It's the closest, best source that you can get. Regardless, the next night they go to RPM Speedway, another track that I'm very familiar with in Crandall, Texas. Very short quarter mile. If you go do some research, actually, I believe Dirt Collective did a video on RPM Speedway, and you'll see my fat ass in there being like a commentator of the video as well. But it's a very, very short track, but very action-packed. Another one of these quarter miles. You know, the quarter miles in Texas, very similar to the quarter miles in California as far as shape and action. But the biggest difference is quarter miles in California tacked up, roughed up a little bit. Quarter miles in Texas, for those who I guess we're about to be seeing a lot of it in the 410 industry, quarter miles in Texas they go hard, slick, and they widen out. They are very slick and not slow. They got a little bit of a cushion. You know, there's obviously most of these tracks have walls around them, but they go into ice rink racing, and it provides great visual racing, I think. And some of these tracks in Texas, they can stay slick for races on end. It's not like they just rubber down instantly like some of the other tracks we see out there in the country. So very interesting way to open up April, by the way. This is all in April. So peering over to the World of Outlaws schedule to see how that coincides, I mean, you could literally go to Texas in the South, and if you're Rico Abreu, for instance, you can go down there after the Outlaws open and race all down in the South at Kennedale, Cotton Bowl, Big O, Lawton, Thunderbird, 81 Speedway, and then you could even do 81 Speedway and 36 and Arrowhead, and then instead of going to I-55, you can switch right over if you're Rico, which he didn't seem to commit last night fully to high limit. Then you could switch right over to Riverside International Speedway and then go down into Texarkana, Texas Motor Speedway, RPM, Red Dirt Raceway, Salina, and then, you know, you get into, and that's pretty much it looks like Texas swing. It's going to, or Midwest South, Mid-South swing, I guess you would call it, April 9th through the 16th, and then back up to Oklahoma. And then Lakeside, May 3rd and 4th. I don't really want to keep on paroling over here and looking at the Outlaw schedule. Kind of want to go down this schedule real quick. But there are some interesting dates and how they line up to one another. So the Texas-Oklahoma swing ends in April. Then it's up into Kansas in May. Lakeside for a Friday, Saturday. Then a Friday, Saturday with 34 Raceway and Tri-City in Illinois. Then a Tuesday night date at Kokomo. Going to be a great race. And then up into New York, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, Outlaw Speedway. Interesting racetrack. Gets dusty, but can put on races. Really good ones. Utica Rome Friday, Fonda on Saturday. And then a 2-day show the following weekend at Port Royal. $29,000 to win. I believe that might be the Weikert then with that number on there. So a Tando event with high limit, potentially the Weikert at Port Royal, May 25th and 26th. Following that, the Tuesday at Grandview Speedway, on the 28th, of 20,000 to win. For the record, the higher paying events to start the season. No 50s to start super early. First 50,000 to win will be in May at Lakeside. So then you see a TBD date, which is right prior to Butler Motor Speedway in Michigan. Interesting. Where would you put racing? In Gas City or something? So it had to be something in Northern Ohio, maybe Millstream's available at that point, something like that on the way to Michigan. And then Tuesday, June 4th, a midweek race. This is probably going to be one of the most anticipated sprint car races of the year, in my opinion, at Davenport Speedway. Of course, we've seen the amazing racing action that the late models have put on at Davenport. Who knows what the 410s in the midweek with the Larson, with who else is going to be there. Because we're assuming that Larson will run the full midweek schedule like he did this year. They're all going to be at Davenport Speedway, and the shows that have been put on there have been very, very impressive. First real national 410 racing action that track has seen, I guess, in quite some time, especially since going to a quarter mile. Then we see the June 7th and 8th. That is the Rudine race at I-70. Following that on a Tuesday is Eagle for $50,000 on a Tuesday, June 11th. At the Eagle Raceway. Was a very marquee race last year. It should be a little bit better this year. I think a lot of guys will be going to that event based on the crowds, and the crowd was insane. They might want to bring in some more grandstands for that thing, I'll say. Then it looks like they take about a week and a half, 2 weeks off. Wednesday, June 26th, Lake of the Ozark, 20,000. That's another midweek show leading into a Friday, Saturday event at the Lucas Oil Speedway. Going to be very interesting to see that. It's a 25,000 to win event. And then it looks like a little bit of a 2-week break, potentially, to Portsmouth Raceway Park. And something interesting here, we saw that the World of Outlaws are off for July 4th weekend. We also see High Limit is off for July 4th weekend. So we've been used to seeing somewhat big sprint car events on the weekend of July 4th. This does somewhat open the door for a third player to jump into the game and put on a big show on July 4th weekend, because I'm not seeing it here on High Limit. I'm sure there's some big regional events. Always fireworks and race cars. I think most of us have grown up. If we went to the races for a majority of our life, we saw a bunch of fireworks shows at racetracks. So, interesting here. Are we going to see a third party potentially come in and try to throw in a big show? You know, you got some people out there used to throwing money on the table, XRs and stuff in the late model world. Will somebody come in and throw in a big show July 4th weekend? Both the Outlaws and High Limit not on it. Anyways, on the heels of it, Portsmouth Raceway Park on July 13th. And then that's leading into the next week with, leading into the week with the Eldor, that Joker's Jackpot event. That is happening, 100,000 to win Wednesday and Thursday. It looks like following week they're going to Lernerville for 10,000, not the 50, but a 10,000 to win Lernerville event. And then back to another issue here. Back to another issue for the Port Royal fans. We see Thunderbolt Raceway, 25,000 to win on a Thursday, August 15th. And if we're talking about, like I said earlier, I mean, Riverside with their early spring High Limit race and the fall Outlaw race separated. August 15th to what's the date on the Roth race? August 15th to September 21st. That's about the same distance of Tuscarora to the potential or the previous weekend or the current Selinsgrove date. So that once again, I mean, and I don't think, who's to blame? Who knows, really? Who knows? From the hearings and the sayings, it seems like the Outlaws pulled that thing, and then Port Royal spot, like I said earlier. But there's another one, and then right on the heels of it, this is the West Coast swing for High Limit, starting off at Thunderbolt, at Tulare. And then Friday, 20,000 to win at Kings, Hanford, who also has the Tom Tarleton race on the Outlaw schedule the following month. This has not hindered these two tracks from having a World of Outlaw race. Why did that apply to Port Royal? There's some questions out there I ain't got the answers to. And you can't get the answers to, probably. Too much behind the door politicking, I think. Anyways, regardless, Saturday you got Placerville, and then here you have at the end of August, or the weekend before the end of August, kind of turn weekend, second week to the end. The 3-day Silver Dollar Nationals Gold Cup, whatever you want to call it. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, paying $100,000 to win on Saturday, August 24th. Now, where does that line up against the Outlaw schedule? Unfortunately for these markets, that is up there in River Cities and Red River Valley. So we're going to stay away from the conflicts just yet. We're going to get into the conflicts of interest here. That's the best way to say it. Conflicts of interest. Interest in having big sprint car shows is the conflict. And I think I'm seeing two sides slowly develop. Not just in the series, but in the promotionals of these events, that the money slingers. The gunslingers, I guess we'll call them. Gunslingers on the track, money slingers in the booth. Monday, following the Gold Cup, $12,000 to win at Douglas County in Oregon. Wednesday at Grays Harbor, and then up to Skagit for the $100,000 to win event at Skagit. Then the grueling trek all the way across the country to Port Royal for the $57,000 to win Tuscarora 50. It would be nice if that was 157, but I guess we're too close to Mike Marlar. We got to be closer to Kyle Larson. I don't know what that's all about. Regardless, you still have the following weekend, you have the Silver Cup. I believe I'm assuming that's what they're going to name that at. The $10,000 and $50,000 to win 2-day show at Lernerville. Following that, I believe this is 4 Crown weekend at Eldora, joining the USAC Silver Crown Sprint Car and Midgets. 2-day show at Eldora, 10 and 15. To be determined Wednesday event following that 4 Crown. That could be an interesting date for a bunch of people to potentially fill. I know a lot of people were upset that Lawrenceburg wasn't on the Outlaws schedule. Lawrenceburg isn't on this either, even though, I didn't read Lernerville as Lawrenceburg earlier. My eyes ain't that bad. But they do go to Florence Speedway in Kentucky. Now, this is the home of the National Dirt Late Model Hall of Fame. This is a big late model racetrack. They have a lot of big things around it, big events year in and year out. Their big event, the North-South, I believe, is on the same weekend as the Knoxville Nationals every year. That's why I haven't went to it yet. But they're going to get a taste of some 410 winged action. It's only a $12,000 to win, but it is following a pretty decent schedule right there. And I also believe that would be the time that is also the time that the Outlaws are coming back from the West Coast. But we're going to get it once again back to scheduling conflicts. This could be a very long episode. Atomic, then on a Tuesday, even though Atomic, once again, has an Outlaw show. Atomic, we'll repeat that, has an Outlaw show. They also now have a high limit show for the world to see. This was probably already known by those in the back of the beings. On a Tuesday, October 1st. On a Tuesday. And then Tuesday, October 8th, the following week, you have a $20,000 to win I-70 event. And then they go all the way down to Texas for the season finale, October 11th and 12th. This date is against the Selinsgrove date for $10,000 and $50,000 to win. So maybe they had an issue with that. I'm not sure. But let's digress. So we have one. Let's see here. Obviously, can we count Eldora? Eldora as another track that has a date that also has an Outlaw date? I mean, we should, right? Fair is all. So we got Atomic. We got Eldora. You got Kings. You got Thunderbolt. And then obviously you got Riverside. You should get 5 tracks with a Outlaw date and a high limit date. Although the notion was that's why Port Royal was taken off. That was the notion. That's what everybody was assuming. All these tracks are being told they have to choose, but we got 5 examples where they didn't have to. Now let's look at some of these bigger events, because the bigger events and how those coincide with the World of Outlaws schedule is going to make some differences here. Let's see the first $50,000 to win. It's going to be May 4th at Lakeside Speedway. So May 4th, Lakeside Speedway 2-day event. $50,000 to win with a high limit series. Where may the Outlaws be? looks like 3 and 4. They're at Eldora. So I believe that is potentially the Litz Race 2. So you'll have the Litz Race 2 event. I believe that's what that has been traditionally, that spring date with the Outlaws at Eldora. And that is what the 50,000 to win Lakeside event is up against. No harm, no foul, kind of extremely Midwest to Ohio. That's probably what, a 10 or 12, 10-ish, 11-ish, 9-ish something hour drive between the two tracks. Not too terrible of a distance to make something like that happen, but it is Eldora. People love Eldora. Let's keep on scooting down here. Of course, you got the Weikert at Port Royal, May 26th. Yes, 25th, 26th weekend. And that is the same weekend that the Outlaws are at Atomic. So decently close. 2-day show. Of course, the Weikert is on a Sunday. The main money is on a Sunday. The prelim is the Saturday event. So, I mean, not that bad of an issue. And then Tuesday, these midweek shows we're assuming don't have no conflict. This is June 11th. Yeah, no conflict between the two. Got Portsmouth in here. Eldora 100,000. Obviously, we know that is really not going to be an issue. But these West Coast races, obviously 15th and 16th at the two tracks that I guess are okay to have Outlaws and high limit races, Thunderbolt and Kings, August 15th and 16th. That's going to be on the Jackson Nationals weekend. So obviously we would assume that a bunch of guys would go to the Jackson Nationals. But I mean, it is 25, 20, and 12. It is Placerville as well. Do we treat California kind of like a PA scene, like they can sustain big events without all the big drivers or without the Outlaws being there? But that's going to take a significant amount of, I would say, competition away. But how many people were actually driving all the way out to the Midwest to race Jackson at that point of the year? But the other issue is, I believe the week before is the Knoxville Nationals. So you potentially will have some teams that have drove out to the Midwest to race Knoxville, and they could just hang around and race Jackson the next weekend. Or now you have a $25,000 and $20,000 lure on the West Coast for those guys to not stay around, to get back home and see your girlfriend and relax. That's the freedom factor that the high limit schedule has. Although I don't know how much of a freedom factor it is, where they're whistling to come back across the country to Tulare and Kings. Although once again, we've seen how much, obviously Jackson, Houston, Todd Queering, everybody doing so much for the Outlaws. And here's two tracks that have an outlaw date that now have somewhat, I would say, a pretty premier payout based on this schedule, a 25 and a 20 with high limit, that also have an outlaw date that are going to be a lure. These are lures for some of those West Coast guys that may have went to Knoxville the prior week that Jackson Nationals may be trying to attract. Very interesting scenario. It was 2 years ago. That's why me and Larson had our issue. I was like, why did you put this race over here? I thought the idea was to get PA guys to go here. Almost a very similar situation with the West Coast guys. So the logic or the general consensus as to why Port Royal lost their date is really falling flat on its face right now, because you have a lot of conflicting interests in this beginning of this California swing. And honestly, if you go out to the California swing on the 15th, 16th, and 17th for this, then you stay around for the next weekend for $100,000 to win at Silver Dollar. So I almost, and let's see, where is that going to land? Back to the River Cities. We already mentioned that. So River Cities and their races are getting really hammered. I believe Ogilvie, the 7th and 8th is River Cities, and Ogilvie is also the one getting hammered by the Rudine race down there at I-70 as well. So how these schedules are conflicting are definitely not helping some people in some situations. That northern area up there, that upper Midwest, it's definitely got some conflicting dates here where they kind of needed some guys to maybe travel up that direction, but maybe not. Maybe they'll be able to sustain. But regardless, if you're a sprint car guy, and maybe this outlaw or the sprint car schedule is going to create more Rico Abreu's. I mean, how could you look at this and not want to go to California after the Knoxville Nationals for this big payday? Obviously, Jackson's paying big. You could do either or. But then how would you not go to Silver Dollar following that, at least? Start your way over there to Silver Dollar for $100,000. And then follow it up with the next week with another $100,000. And then in the Rico Abreu style fashion of Brent Marks True Fashion Outlaw, this ends August 31st, this $100,000, which is up against Huset's once again. Huset's is on that August 31st. It's a September 1st, Saturday, Sunday. Obviously, Huset's is a Sunday track. But if you're an outlaw, you just stay on the West Coast. You don't go across the country to the Tuscarora 50. You stay over here because here comes the Outlaws to the West Coast swing. And you stay around a little bit more and race for $83,000 in just a couple weeks at Tulare, the conflicting track date. So, honestly, this schedule, back to the late model world, is promoting more Scott Bloomquist, more Jonathan Davenport style guys. More, and we're talking about 2 years ago when Davenport hit that 2 million mark. He was just an outlaw guy. He just ran wherever he wanted. He chased the money. And I think Madden did as well. Not sure, not 100% on the Madden deal, but those money earners, there's a lot of outlaw teams out there that ain't no series guy. So $100,000 at Skagit, August 31st, and then you had the Port Royal split, and this is the split between Port Royal, and you're going to have some guys commit to some guys, I don't know how, going to commit to going back in however many days, 4 or 5 days, whatever, to get to PA to Port Royal to run Tuscarora versus staying on the West Coast to run for $83,000 and against the Outlaws. And then also, on top of that, the week after the Tuscarora 57, you got, I'm assuming, the Silver Cup at Lernerville for $50,000. And that's on the same weekend as Merced and Bakersfield. Not a big deal, but, I mean, how many of these teams are going to just start slinging back and forth across the country? I mean, the diesel bill's getting high. You almost need 2 different cars, or maybe a Rico has a Tyner. You know, he said last night on Gravel Show he has his car based in Indiana. You know, just flies back and forth to hit all these bigger events. It's just very, very interesting. And then the following week, obviously 4 Crown, 10 and 15 for High Limit. And see, this is kind of where you kind of get the feel that this is kind of the All-Stars with some national races sprinkled in. And that's kind of the feeling, because you get like this big-time feeling with Gold Cup and big-time feeling with 100K, and then slots back into All-Star style with Tuscarora, kind of the All-Star style with the Ohio, PA area of Lernerville and Eldora 4 Crown, while Outlaws are over here, you know, racing for $83,000 now at Tulare, the track that is somewhat causing a bit of a conflict between a pretty heavy investor in the Outlaws, and then also, you know, I guess luring drivers away, but to and from. It's not extremely confusing, but trying to understand the alliances and how they all make sense is somewhat confusing, just a little bit. And then let's see here. They do end their schedule a little earlier. High Limit with Florence. That'll be an interesting date. Of course, though, that date on the 28th is against Sharon. And these tracks aren't that very far apart. Obviously, Hartford, Ohio. I mean, some people they're far apart. I mean, I drive a lot. These teams drive a lot. Hartford, Ohio to Kentucky, Florence, you know, is not that big of a difference. But 12,000 to typical outlaw night, I guess, is going to be 12 or 15,000, a $12,000 race. So these will be matched for payout almost, except for the outlaw teams. It'll just be up to who wants to try to race 410s at Florence for something new. And then the Tuesday race at Atomic, and as we've all said, and then once again this Texas Motor Speedway date is on the same weekend as that new Selinsgrove date. So it's a very interesting scenario here that is playing out. We do have both schedules out to fully compare. March will be interesting and kind of carefree for any teams who want to race either or. I think February, if I mean, just not for the sake of ego, but for the sake of the damn sport. I mean, if you're the World of Outlaws, it benefits you tremendously for these East Bay dates and Golden Isle dates for your guys to be able to stay around and make some money in Florida, and while they're waiting a month to come back for Bike Week. I mean, it just makes sense. I mean, Florida's almost a vacation for some of these teams in itself. They don't have as much of a grueling schedule as the late model drivers do. It's not even close. And here's some opportunities for the guys to make some money. And technically, I'm assuming it's the same 4 burn nights that they get to have next year. But you could burn them up in the first month of the year. I think that should be a catch-22 situation there with the February situation, because that's a stickily a literal month between one race and the other at the same track. I just think this benefits keeping cars there and fans there to allow your guys to go run these events. And then once again, I just don't understand the whole debacle with the port deal. And we've been hearing, even Dirt Tracker been saying, tracks are having to decide. We got 5 tracks. 5 tracks with both series on the schedule. And this Thunderbolt Kings, Thunderbolt in particular, man. And then Rudine putting on some big races on top of Huset's. Don't know how that's going to work. Obviously, Rudine versus Queering might be the 2 bigger promoters on each side here. You got Queering obviously doing a lot with Huset's and the Outlaws, and you got Rudine obviously doing a lot with High Limit. So these could be the 2 big entities on each side as well. I'm not sure if they see it that way, but these schedules see it that way. So it'll be interesting. This is a new schedule out. FlowRacing.com has the article. I'm sure High Limit Racing has the article up as well. Like I said, if I was a Port Royal fan and I was hearing all this, you got to pick one or the other, and that's why it's just business as usual. And I come on here and I see 5 damn tracks. 5 with dates on both. That reason ain't no good for me no more. That reason just ain't no good for me no more. Let's check the YouTube chat. Let's see what y'all have to say here. Oh my, we got a ton of them in here. Oh my, it's actually happening. They are going at it. They are going at it. Let's see here. The series split, although we would like some damn super chats. I shouldn't even put your chats up here. The series split is looking like a real bad idea. I don't know if it's a bad idea. I think it depends on what... Oh, I'm not even answering no NASCAR questions. Why the hell would a guy put a NASCAR question? All right, I think I may have to take the chat off the screen at this point. I can't be going on... We can't have this schedule come out and we got people asking about chat or NASCAR. I can't believe that just happened. I can't believe that just happened. Looks like you're a pick and chooser. They have a lot more options now to do so and run where they want for bigger money. I think that's the bigger deal here. It is slowly becoming that late model scene. And in that late model scene prior to here recently, you did have guys not really commit to series much at all. Like I said, that Davenport year where he went $2 million, he wasn't committed to a series at all. Hold on, we may be having a caller. Track promoter is on the phone with me right now, very upset. Very upset. And he's on the side of the high limits. Very powerful entity that I'm exchanging text with. Hold on, let me just read this right now. On the high limit side of scenarios, he's saying tracks were definitely given ultimatums. Some tracks did not. Some tracks seemed to get a pass. Some tracks seem to get a pass in this ordeal. 5 of them. 5 of them got a pass. Some of them didn't get one. Why? That's a whole other question. That's a whole nother ball of wax. With 60 shows and conflicts with good paying, World of Outlaws show suite is making sure he wins the first championship on attendance points alone. I think he will be one of only 3 that do all 60. I mean, and they're hoping for Brent Marks, right? They're hoping for Brent Marks. Rico did not sound like he was going to commit. I guess the only true, like we know for sure, committed to the high limit series, Jacob Allen. I just don't think Jacob Allen is in that tier. I look at Jacob Allen in a tier 2 when I'm considering Brad Sweet tier 1. When I say tier 1, I'm talking Brad Sweet, Gravel, Macedo, Larson, tier 1. There is just a tier 1. I think Allen is a solid tier 2. Tier 2's, and you can float, you can move back and forth. It's not like you are stationary in one, but based on results here, like we could say Rico Abreu in previous years was a tier 2, and now he, based on this last year, he slotted up into that tier 1 scenario. So it can go back and forth. Donnie Schatz, was he a tier 1 10 years ago? In today's world, is he a tier 1? That's a debatable topic. The best thing about doing high limit is you could still run the big outlaw events. This is very true. Looks like we did get a super chat. Thank you. Should be an interesting season. Enjoy the show. Thank you, Honky Tong Crob. Is this the Patrick Crob guy? Is that the Aloha kid commenting? Is that the Aloha kid down there? Look at that face. Look at that. That face is the face of we can all get along. I don't think I know anybody else who has a better looking all get along face than that. But that paint job on that car is definitely old school and badass. The Aloha Kid from Pearl City, Hawaii. I believe that's who that is. Is that the Honky Tonk Crob right there? Is that Patrick Crob? Let me know if it is. Oh, he rolled his eyes. Looks like the high limit needs Chaz as a full-time. I'm not, dude, I don't know. Could I commit? If you're covering media in the sport, would you commit to one? How, as me, not necessarily a broke penis or broke dick, as some people would call it. I mean, I made some pretty damn good money last night doing Uber, listening to David Gravel and Rico talk. But how would I, on a budget, covering this sport or in this sport, and everybody in this sport except a few guys is on a budget. They're on it. If they don't get my stuff's kind of like a race car. If I don't have big corporate entities ain't gonna sponsor me. I'm too opinionated. All this stuff. I have to make it on my winnings. My winnings is performing well in views and counts and public support. Fans, when y'all send super chats, it's kind of like buying a t-shirt. I do have t-shirts for sale as well on the site. That's how I make it. That's how I keep going down the road to the next races by whipping ass at the last one. How can I, as a media member, go out, say, for instance, to the West Coast, because it seems very alluring for these 100K races after the Knoxville Nationals, go all the way over there to the West Coast in the beginning of August, get to Skagit 100K, and why would I leave? Why would even somebody in my position in media leave to go to the Tuscarora 50 when the World of Outlaws are coming to town at these other badass racetracks? And the 83,000 to win Roth race is a couple weeks away at Tulare. It looks like a better sprint car roster on the national tours. It looks like the World of Outlaws have the better national sprint car tour. Now, we see what happens with Marks. We see what happens with Wise. Tyler Courtney's a very good one. Rico Abreu, I didn't see one way or another right now. I didn't see one way or another. I did invite the track, or the promoter. I'm not even going to call him a track promoter. I did invite the promoter from the high limit side to call in just now. He said he's heading to pick up the kid and take her shopping. So he's taking his daughter shopping. So this promoter's not going to add to the lip service that I'm giving you today. But he says that some tracks did have ultimatums, or he said tracks were given ultimatums. We have 5 examples where that was not the case. I think maybe it has to do with the backhanded politics, the egos. That, once again, the ego runs the sport, no matter who it is. Whether it's the driver who wants to win a race, all of this is based on ego. All of this is saying, I did something that this other guy didn't. I own the car. I sponsored this. I put on this race. I did that. I streamed it. I produced it. Hell, even me on here, I do all this myself. I'm the Chaz. I blah, 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 blah. I do music. I do interviews. I blah, 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 blah. It's all ego. And ego's good. Ego's good for survival and prosperity. But some tracks were given ultimatums. Port Royal, we need I don't know who needs an explanation. I'm not going to come asking for you. I ain't getting on my knees and begging your ass. But I think that Port Royal or PA Posse fans deserve a explanation. I don't think that's unfair to say. I feel like they deserve an explanation as to why that happened. Because we heard, oh, you got to pick one or the other. That shit's out the window. 5 examples saying otherwise. Now, even though promoters are saying they had to make that choice, 5 people didn't. Why? I'm just saying, if I was them, I'd be a little upset. I did see a comment down here. All right, hold on. Let's get up here to some of these other super chat. Thanks a lot. And if you want us to join the support or like and subscribe right now, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 10,000. Of course, we were at the 20,000, 30,000 mark on Facebook before they took it away because I called Gage Martinez a slut. But we are trying to build up this YouTube deal. Only been on here for about a year and a half, going close to 2 years, trying to get it to 10K. It would be really appreciated if you would subscribe to the channel, but like and comment, and then just watching is all you need to do. We also have the memberships to get your name up on the top of the screen. But regardless, super chats do help as well. Team contracts with World of Outlaws is why some tracks get both, maybe? I don't know, man. Like I said, somebody has to be talking about it. Todd Queering has to be pissed about the Cali swing going on during Jackson when he struggles to get cars there anyways. 32 cars last year. And that was my point. It's like, and Travis, to add to that, the 2 tracks that following weekend, 2 of the 3 that are luring them back over there to the West Coast are one of the 5 tracks that are on both schedules, Travis. They're one of the 5. Or 2 of the 5 in Kings and Tulare. What? That just don't make no sense to what? What? I don't get it. I don't get it. I bet you there's some phone calls being had today. There has to be some phone calls. I'm for saying what I think and getting truth out there. Some people call it drama. I think if more truth is out there, we have less drama, because I think drama is really actually created from people not talking to one another and keeping their little secrets in behind doors. And that's how you always have this kind of weird feeling around some people. And that's because they're not honest with people. They don't just have conversations and work the drama out. I believe putting truth out there and talking things out is how you kill drama, technically. But I have a feeling there is some phone calls being made. If there's not, I just need to go to making music anyway, because some of this shit just don't make no sense. Let's get down to the newer comments. I think it's because it costs money to get the Outlaws to a certain track. Well, I hear a lot of these are rented track co-promoters. These are events where the Outlaws are renting tracks and putting the events on themselves, waiving the sanctioning fee, encompassing all of the streaming income. That's what I hear. Not 100% truth. That's what I hear. Co-pros or whatever they want to call them. And then this was the one I wanted to answer. Jetstar Niner. Does this grow the sport? Now, I was thinking about this last night while listening to Rico and David, and David and Rico, and Gravel's one of the more outspoken people, and Rico just don't give a shit, so he's going to say whatever he wants, even though I think he went very soft on the why he's not in NASCAR or didn't go to NASCAR opinion. If you want or at least originally Rico's opinion of NASCAR, look up the Chaz and Rico Abreu interview. Really good one from a couple years ago at the Chili Bowl. Really good. It seemed like he opened up on the subject. But regardless, I was thinking about this, and, obviously we had the USA Series happen here. We had NST. The CART IRL split destroyed IndyCar racing and allowed NASCAR to rise up. But one of the main reasons that allowed NASCAR to rise was because you had, just like Cole Trickle said and just like Jeff Gordon said, he didn't have a last name or a bunch of money and all this stuff, to make it to IndyCar racing in the 90s. So they went to NASCAR, even though the movie was 4 years earlier, and the owner of Jeff Gordon's car in real life was the owner of Cole Trickle's car in the movie and helped produce it and all that. greatest scheme of all time. But David Gravel kind of said that last night as to why he didn't go to NASCAR. So I think that this sport, and anytime somebody starts talking like that, that sport slowly starts getting bigger as the rich popularity punks of the world lose popularity, as we've seen NASCAR continually lose, no matter how they try to spin it. I mean, they're on the CW network. I mean, it's horrible. But regardless, that split happened and allowed NASCAR to grow. And most of the time, people think that splits kind of hurt an industry, and you could say it definitely did with whether it's NST, NSLs, USAs, whatever you want to call it. There was a USAC stock car organization at one point, by the way. I don't know who knows this, but there was a USAC stock car. There was multiple stock car series in America. It took one to do it right and take them all over. That's why I say we need a UFC to come in here and take the sprint car dirt thing and just do it right and take it all over. I'm not so sure that either one of the sides are doing that correctly right now. We did make a good point in a show the other day, how a person was talking about how this sport, and he was talking about how normal sports work, and I do that a lot. He's talking about there is no kind of major league. Nobody's really operating in a major league fashion. And it's true, major leagues can operate in very sectorized events that, a regional qualifies you to, a national. And technically, both of these series kind of act like a regional in that sense, where they're racing week in and week out. There's not actual national events as far as in that ideological perspective. And what I want to say in that light is, even though they are racing every week, and even though it is a split situation, I think that the saving grace here, to be honest with you, is streaming. I think that with the revenue that is making both of these things possible that we're watching right now, Dirt Vision and Flow, because this is, once again, I said it 3 years ago, I think I was talking about the streaming wars. The streaming wars are real. This is the entities outside of the big dollar daddies of the promoters of the world, but these are the bigger entities that are rising and making the huge profits of the world, and the streaming companies that, unlike NSL or NST or USA versus Outlaw, where you had to pick to go to this track or pick to go to that one, and if you picked this one and went to that one, it killed the other one because they didn't get your attendance or any of your money. I think you're going to start seeing people choose what's closer to them and then stream, potentially at the damn racetrack, the other event and watch the other show. And both situations technically will make money because the track that's hosting the event will get the in-person attendance and the in-person support, and the other track putting on their show will get the streaming number and the streaming support. So does this grow the sport? Well, television is slowly going away. I made fun of CW. NASCAR did partner with Amazon Prime, so streaming services and apps to view sports and view entertainment is the future. You've heard Dale Earnhardt Jr. talk about this, how he thinks NASCAR's too far behind and that Dirt's actually further ahead than NASCAR organizations because we have endeavored into the streaming service. Now, we all need to give thanks and give some clapperoos to the Cushion and Dirt Vision for putting in the hard-ass work to make streaming on dirt a thing. Because I feel like those two organizations, at least in the sprint car world in particular, Dirt on Dirt also in the late model industries, which Dirt on Dirt ended up kind of being Flow. These entities do deserve respect and kind of pioneering the streaming industry for the dirt track racing world. A lot of years of losing money, a lot of years of the investments to now be making. And that's how they can somewhat justify the money that they're making, and you don't need to know because of all these years where, oh, you want to know how much money I'm losing when they were developing these ways of doing. So I think that streaming is not only the saving grace for both entities in this scenario to profit on the fan base, but also it is also the thing that is potentially going to help it thrive now. Because we've always heard that these dirt racers or dirt racing or racing events are somewhat boring. They got a lot of downtime working the track and blah, blah, blah. Well, now Even I think in-person attendance, especially at these premier events, are going to be astounding. But now you have the option of the newer fan for the growth watching both at the same time. And anytime one side's boring, they just flip to the other. Anytime one's doing a track work, the other's doing a dash. Now, the only problem with that in streaming is streaming kind of makes money on the fan base that exists, not the fan base that doesn't exist. And this is why when me and Jeremy Elliott were talking, I say the people who are crying, track promoters and promoters who are crying about streaming, destroying the sport, sound like the same promoters who say there's everything to do on a Saturday night 10 years ago. Streaming just became the newest fucking scapegoat. Because the people who have flow and dirt vision are your regular fans. And any successful marketable business like a bar or a restaurant or anything that takes attendance to make survival usually works on a 20 to 30% diehard fan base or a diehard visitor to that bar or that restaurant and a 70 to 80% new customer, new person that's only coming once a year or twice a year. And the people who have flow and dirt vision are in that 20 and 30%. And this is why I say lazy track promoters who haven't been going after the 70 and 80% of the world to garnish those new fans. And streaming doesn't really help that because how can you convince somebody new to spend $300 or $40 or whatever amount on this thing they've more than likely never heard of called dirt track racing, or $150 on float, even though it's a great deal for us monthly? How does that actually grow the sport through the streaming aspect, trying to convince new people to buy something they've never heard of before? When most people scream and cry about buying they bitch about eating healthy, screw that organic onion. It costs $2.50. The regular one costs $1.75. We're dealing with the regular world here. So that's the only issue. Does it grow the sport with the fan base in existence right now? I think it does. The hype, the media attention that this is getting, the stewing, the almost like the wrestling Monday Night Wars. You heard about that back in the day. WCW, WWF blew it up. Even when USFL came in and tried to do something, it was a big story, news line. Both sides kind of got news lines and headlines. Controversy just fucking sells, guys. I hate to say it. It just does. Controversy does sell. So it could potentially grow the sport, I would say. Yes, and I think the difference between today's situation with High Limit and the Outlaws versus previous sprint car scenarios between two national series is streaming. Streaming is actually going to help this situation. In what way? That's a whole nother deal. I feel that Texas is getting some good action next year, no matter what series you pick to watch. It is going to be pretty interesting to see how Texas actually works out in the spring. I mean, there's about a 2-month span there that you could see some badass sprint car racing, or at least a good 3 weeks. You could go to the South next year from beginning of March, second week of March, all the way to end of April and see great racing in Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, and Arkansas, Arkansas with Texarkana 67 and West Memphis. So let's see here. Stream one live at the other. I don't know how that would work. Well, that's basically what they're going to be doing. High Limit should have scheduled a date at Huset's before or after Eagle. I think that there's a line drawn in the sand between Huset's and High Limit with the querying situation, alignment with Outlaws and everything. And I don't think that it would be interesting to see if High Limit ever goes back to Huset's, but there are lines in the sand being drawn here, and I think that's kind of a line that's kind of drawn in the sand currently. On the other side of that, you potentially have Rudine for the High Limit series. The King's Royal Joker's Jackpot Weekend is the ultimate dick measuring contest. I'm not sure why. It's kind of like the only race week that they get along together. High Limit, 60 races in 19 states. World of Outlaws in 86 races in 18 states. One covers more of America than the other, but whatever. It's a pretty good point. What about Maverick doing something big July 4th weekend? It is open. It is open. July 4th weekend is open. Potentially something in the Midwest. Is XR gonna roll into this sprint car. So I hope, I kind of hope not. I've heard some interesting things over there that's happened, but I hope not. Maybe a third party, somebody could do something, or maybe everybody's just gonna take the weekend off. I don't know, but the July 4th weekend's open, ladies and gentlemen. It's open. Saturated regions don't need new eyes. Ohio and Pennsylvania are super saturated markets. If you want new fans, you go into new regions and markets. These series are both circle jerking the same fans. Well, it is more diverse than it has been. That's what I think. World of Outlaws missing Lawrenceburg. Apparently there's something with Lawrenceburg and changing promoters, and new people don't want to drop a lot of money, and apparently nobody offered to rent the track either. So, hot take, Outlaws left Port Royal because they got tired of not performing as well against PA guys there. It is detrimental, and it is beneficial for the World of Outlaws to stay away from some of these hotbed areas. When they can go to tracks and it's pretty much just them running 410s, they can look really good and really fast. I think they think they might have that in Texas, but they're going to some quarter miles there. Kennedale and Big O. Buddy, there's some locals down there that can whoop some outlaw ass. I'm telling you right now. There's some guys down there that can whoop some outlaw ass on those quarter miles. May not be able to keep up with them on that half-mile devil's boat. They ain't got the money and the motor. But you put them on those little short quarter miles where you got to outdrive them, you're in trouble. So the Outlaws better look out if they think they got something easy when they go down to Texas in the South on those quarter miles. Let's see what else we got here. Correct my point, then it is growing the viewership, or is it the same fans doing double duty, high limit references, growing the sport? I think High Limit's going to do some promotional things that the Outlaws haven't been doing. Hopefully both sides start doing more promotional things to the world. Somebody's going to introduce the sprint car thing to the world, and they're going to be the UFC. They're going to be the NFL. There's going to be one. There is going to be one. Even in the WCW, WWF example, the WWF won. There is going to be one in every sport. There's one on top in every sport. NBA basketball, UFC mixed martial arts, MLB baseball, NFL football, MLS in America, soccer. There's going to be one on top. There's going to be. And that's going to be, in my opinion, the one who introduces it to the new world. We're so far behind. The one who introduces it to the new world first in a proper and effective way. That's going to be your winner of this deal. Because that's where you're going to get those new people. That's where the 350 million people are. We're trying to fill racetracks with 10,000 seats, struggling sometimes. 350 million people sitting out there. Go fishing, guys. Go fishing. But it looks like that's about it. Last call, Heroes Barbecue Nest. Barbecue, the NST fell apart because the owner died, I'm pretty sure. Yes, Bloomfield? No? Maybe wrong on the name. But yeah, that was a situation. But also there was a bunch of stuff going on. It wasn't just that simple, I don't think. It's never just that simple. It's never just one guy. This isn't Christianity. But let's see. People, Chaz getting into, okay. Oh, Chaz getting into the car full time in High Limit. They want Larson to survive, right? You put me out there in a car, I'm gonna rough him up. I don't think the insurance companies would like me on the track with Kyle Larson. Chaz pronounces words on a David Gravel level. No, that's not true. I know how to pronounce Kennedale. Jeez. These schedules show the nepotism and lack of really wanting to be seen by new eyes. I don't understand how that is. It's pretty diverse. Chaz, what do you think about each series only having 4, 5, 6 named drivers? I think that's what you're about to see. Obviously, the Outlaws have built some names over the years. Why do we think that all these names on the Outlaw Tour are so much better than everyone else? We watched the Outlaws go to the World Finals, and the regular Outlaws didn't even make the dash. All of them were put outside of the dash. There's other guys out here that are just as good as the drivers on the Outlaw Tour, but the Outlaw Tour has done a good job in building their brand to a point that in the minds of the sprint car world, not the regular world, this is why I say the ones who can reach the actual world are going to probably take this over. But in our sprint car minds, we think that the Hodenschilds and the Macedos and these guys are just so much better, but we see other guys beat them all the time. But it's because they're under that Outlaw brand. They've built it. They made us think that way. These big names. So the High Limit Series has a job now to build their roster and build their names. Whether that's Zeb Wise, whether that's Tyler Courtney, whether that's Aaron Reitzel, whether that's whoever you could think of that's out there, Rico or Marks, or maybe they could convince Brian Brown. All these guys, Jacob Allen. They can take these guys that we may think are not that better than the Outlaws, but they can put them next to Kyle at the Indianapolis 500 and introduce them to the world like they're the best. We see this all the time. We all know that NASCAR's a bunch of rich pricks that really don't know how to fucking drive. They're just out there in NASCAR vehicles on asphalt that control how good you can perform, and they look good, and NASCAR projects them as the best in the world. I've had arguments with thousands of NASCAR drivers over the years on how they think Chase Elliott or any NASCAR driver or Kyle Busch can just jump in a sprint car and wax our guy's ass. They literally think that. They literally believe that the NASCAR Cup guys outside of Larson and Bell can just jump in dirt cars and win World of Outlaw races like first try. They think that. Even though we know that's psychologically delusional. This is what I'm talking about. You can be that. You could do that same thing with the roster within the sprint car world. You could take an average so odd roster and project it to that society as the best of the best, better than them all. And slowly but surely, even though you may know that David Gravel is better than Jacob Allen, the world will argue you into the ground that he's not, because this is our guy. This is who's been projected to me as the best. So this is the type of marketing and things that I'm talking about when you're talking about taking them to the world, because you can manipulate society. Very interesting. And the sprint car world's got what, 340,000 people, 400,000 people likes World of Outlaws on Facebook, something like that. 400,000. I'm talking about talking to 350 million. Okay, so it's the bigger army wins at that state. I don't think Marks will go high limit. The True Outlaw schedule has been working well for him the last couple of years. I mean, the True Outlaw schedule is looking like Brownfield. There you go, Fred Brownfield with NST. But yeah, the True Outlaw schedule looks like the way to go. Should have been ESPN and X Games back in 2002. I think X Games would be a badass event to have on July 4th. I don't know when they're doing it, but I've been trying to get a sprint car event at an X Games event for a while. Maybe Kyle Larson knows who to talk to make that happen. Maybe we can get Travis Pastrana out of that modified and over in the boardroom with somebody at X Games to bring dirt track racing to the X Games events. I think that would be huge for projecting this sport and promoting it. Been saying that for almost 10 years. Kyle leveraging the Indy 500 is a good idea. And in fact, that is the one thing I did not check. That is the one thing I did not check that I actually had a good idea on. Okay, so Indy 500 next year is May 10th and 11th. The High Limit Racing Series, May 10th and 11th. That's a drop of the ball, in my opinion. I mean, I know that it's hard to make things happen, but that's a drop in the ball. That leading up to that week, Tuesday or somewhere around that, should have been a Kokomo. I mean, I see that they're doing a date after, so maybe that's the better way. Maybe it is better to, I would take that. Although you're racing the same night at 34 in Tri-City, I thought that was I thought that the Indy 500 was a good opportunity for Kyle to use that platform to take this roster, whatever this roster is going to be. You got to almost piggyback off of Kyle and promote that roster as this thing. And the Indy 500 was a hell of a stage where you could have had, even if it's 6 guys on the roster sitting there in pit lane or in the pit area, or just in the same media entities and rooms and areas that Kyle's going and showcasing them to these different media groups and things like that in different sectors of society and people. I thought that would have been a really good home run for them in what they're attempting to do. But I guess racing at 34 Raceway, which was one of the lowest attended races in Tri-City on the same weekend as the Indy 500, is a little more important. But they are going to the Kokomo following the Indy 500 on a Tuesday. So maybe that can work. Maybe they could bring them in prior to the Indy 500. I'm sure Kyle don't want to be messed with on race days and stuff. Promote them throughout the media week of the Indy 500 and then say, hey, come watch us Tuesday. They go off to race Friday, Saturday, and then meet up on Tuesday and potentially have spurred a little something out of that. And obviously you see some of the asterisk marks. That asterisk is not for the World Outlaw Series Championship, although to beat the best, to be the best, you got to beat the best, and that is Brad Sweet. He's not in the Outlaw tour next year, so I do think there's still an asterisk because you can go win the UFC heavyweight title of the world right now, but you didn't beat Francis Ngannou. So regardless, looking at the schedule, when you see these asterisks, those are those midweek events. So it is interesting. I think we're about to get out of here. It is just past an hour. Thanks for the super chats. We got one of them in, two of them in, I think. That was a big deal. We'll read a few more comments here before we go. Actually, got a lot of stuff to do today. Most of the 350 mil live in urban markets, won't venture to the sticks, need urban stadiums to reach the masses, but too noisy. I think that's a huge misconception. I think that's blanketing an entire sector of society that you probably never met in your entire life. I think that is horrible to blanket people, to be able to think you know what people are, think, and want to see and do. I think that goes back to some words I don't really want to say right now because I think it's used too much. But where would that fall under the right plagiarism? I mean, I think that it's wrong to judge sectors of society just because of where they may live or how they may look. No matter how much this TV and these politicians have, mentally manipulated you into labeling people in today's society. I think that's the biggest mistake that dirt track racing is actually probably making right now. Limiting your audience based on what? Oh, God. Spike has arrived. We're going to definitely have to get out of here. 30 minutes until the Tanner Holmes announcement. Okay, I will get out of here soon. So Tanner Holmes has an announcement apparently on his YouTube, so stay tuned. It's in the next hour. Just wanted to go through the schedule, let everybody look at it, see some of the different things, see what I think, obviously. And definitely want to thank Honky Tonk Crob for the $2 You Holla super chat in there. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, want to thank everybody for tuning into the show. We got some music on deck. It's coming up very soon. Got to go sling some Uber. Got to make this money. Got Open Wheel Showdown tonight on Speed Sport TV. If you're looking for some racing, the Open Wheel Showdown's been pretty badass. I mean, I watched the practice last night. It was actually really, really good. These cars are flying. I'm going to show a little bit of footage of these cars going around the track. They do look different than your traditional sprint car, but they look pretty badass. $50,000 to win, wing sprint cars, $10,000 to win midgets, $5,000 to win super modifieds. There's the man putting it on. Also racing, Davey Hamilton Jr. A lot of people upset at this guy. They're saying he's playing the Kyle Larson card. He's racing his own event and winning the money, and this is so horrible. I saw him address it on an interview last night. And he is putting this show on for $50,000, and he's also the fastest guy on the track right now. They're saying this is the Kyle Larson of the asphalt sprint car world. But you see sometimes, you see the cars looking around the track. But I just wanted to show y'all some of these cars, how fast they actually are. These are the super modifieds. I don't know who's actually seen these before, but they get around the track pretty damn fast too. And they haul it. They haul it. Although these are custom-built race cars. There is no chassis manufacturers technically for super modifieds. So all these vehicles that you see on the track are 100% custom. This is happening at Las Vegas. That is actually Davey Hamilton Sr., running that orange number 1 car. That was a resto car that they turned into a race car for this event. And as you can see, they're hauling the mail around here. Sprint cars are averaging 113 miles per hour. I saw this 50 car last night. It's being driven by Jason Blonde. I don't know who remembers this guy who used to drive that, but a guy who's here that could kick Davey Hamilton Jr.'s ass from sun up to sundown, from the east to the west coast, from Australia to New Zealand, would have been the original driver of this 50 car. And I remember watching him as a kid. A guy named Cameron Dotson would have whooped his ass, and unfortunately did pass away a few years ago at the age of 33, apparently crossing the street and got hit by a car walking. So, want to give a big shout out to Cameron Dotson. I used to watch him as a kid and was really extremely impressed by how he could sling one of these asphalt sprint cars around Winchester. I remember watching some races there where he would just demolish fields. But Jason Blonde in the 50 car, some people see that car and they may think of Cameron Dotson, but that's actually who is behind the wheel of that race car at this event. Of course, tonight qualifying and heat races. Tomorrow is the 50K, $24.99 on Speed Sport TV to actually watch this. But look at these guys flying, man. These cars are hauling. They are dropping them in the corner too. It's almost dirt-esque. I mean, they're throwing them in there. They are getting on the throttle and boogieing off these corners. So these cars are flying 113 mile an hour average speed on a 3/8 mile. There was one car. There's that Jason Blonde. He was one of the fast cars on the racetrack. Of course, that car, in my opinion, was made famous by Cameron Dotson. He just went to the top of the charts there with a 12.1 second lap. This is kind of the warm-ups. Just giving y'all a little bit of a preview of this thing. Once again, Speed Sport TV, they have been fighting the actual scammers of the world. I have not seen scammers. They've literally had to make a post here. I have not seen scammers come off of or come after a race as much as I've seen this one. Speed Sport TV or speedsport.live, .tv or .live. You can go to their Open Wheel Showdown Facebook page to get direct links, obviously. $24.99 for both days. Not a bad deal. Obviously, with this event charge, it's going to help the event a little bit more. It's not a yearly or a monthly fee, but that's so that the event promoters get supplemented on and can actually have numbers on how many people are actually paying to watch that event versus a Flow or a Dirt Vision where there's multiple events in a month. It's hard to tell which event is actually the reason for the purchase. So it is a different way of doing streaming, possibly the better way to do it, especially if we go towards more an event-based type of a schedule in the dirt track racing world. So it'll be interesting to see this event, this race, and how it goes down. So tune over there, watch that. It is tonight and tomorrow. It is asphalt, but buddy, it's still sprint cars. They're still flying. It's open wheel. I know the open wheel fan base likes it. I heard Kyle Larson could have raced this, but insurance wouldn't allow him because of how fast they go. And when these asphalt cars get out of control and wreck, they wreck pretty damn hard. So I can understand the worries about that. Dirt, believe it or not, does provide a little bit of a cushion, especially in comparison to the asphalt stuff. We'll go to the chat one more time, see what y'all are thinking about this Open Wheel Nationals and stuff like that. Chaz, you going to make the Little 500 this year? I may. I haven't been. I'm kicking myself for not going to the damn Las Vegas race, but we're going to try to make it happen. 10,000 people at the Little Indiana 500. It's the biggest sprint car event in Indiana. It'll be interesting. Oswego's in New York Super Modifieds. Yes, those are the Super Modifieds. They used to be bigger on the West Coast. They have one away. This is one of the biggest events they've had for that division. I know they have a big race up in Boise, Idaho, I think, or somewhere up in Meridian or something, and they still have a decent amount of supers, but not too many. As High Limit's new announcer, do you have a catchphrase thought up for the 4-wide salute? If you no, I'm not gonna say that. I'm not gonna say it because I'm not the High Limit new announcer. I'm assuming they're gonna come back with a similar structure as this last year. Unfortunate for Blake Anderson or fortunate or unfortunate, however you see it, to not be on the table. I would throw everything in the bank at Johnny Gibson to try to acquire him, but Johnny Gibson obviously is an Outlaw guy. I think Johnny Gibson's too much of a loyalist to the Outlaws for that to even be a potential. Tanner running Shark Car and running High Limit and some money Outlaw shows. Is that official? Did he just say that? Is that like an official word? Did he just say that? Hold on. Are we getting Tanner Holmes news live? People are tuning out, and I'm assuming it's because they're going to Tanner Holmes. Let's see if Tanner Holmes is live right now. Somebody said 30 minutes. It's only been 5. Tanner Holmes is not live right now. Or he could be on Facebook. Let's see. It looks like he is not live right now. So anyway, thanks for the distraction. Chet announcing USAC in 2024. I don't know about that. Knoxville or Houston, which is one you wouldn't want to miss? Knoxville. I think that Huset's is a quarter mile that races like a half mile. Not a lot of passing, in my opinion. Rubbers down quickly, doesn't slick off and widen out. That's my opinion. It says 30 minutes, 13 minutes ago. I said it's been about 5-10 minutes. Tanner did not go live yet. Big deal if true. Yes. Remember when you said you would be pissed if High Limit at Eagle was the week of NASCAR Iowa? Oh, it is the same weekend as Iowa at NASCAR. Really? But it's a midweek, so it's leading up to the NASCAR race. It's a little bit different. Man, this High Limit catchphrase. What would you be like? In it to win it, High Limit? I don't know. What was the other phrase that the guy had? I could make something up for sure. It's not hard for me to ad-lib stuff. So, Chet not announcing USAC. So, Chet is a good one. Chet could do a really damn good job for High Limit next year. He's good at carrying a conversation. He's good at carrying entertainment. He's got a lot of hit pieces. He's more of a comical guy. Play-by-play, solid. He has a lot of good little catchphrases in itself just throughout the race. So Chet would be a good one. Chet Christner, that is. Tanner's going live at 12:30 Pacific time, which is in 20 minutes. I know. Chet's a real good guy. Always had good things with him. I would say go 5 wide. Screw the 4 wide. Let's go 5. Screw it. NASCAR tried to go 5 at wide and one up us at California all them years ago. Let's just go 5 wide. The limit is high when we go 5 wide. High limit racing here. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, 5 wide. That's what we need. 5 wide. Although I think you'd have a real big issue trying to do 5 wide at RPM. I don't think you have a real big issue going 4 wide at RPM in Crandall. That track is a little bitty place. It's got some Jacksonville nerves to it. Although not as bad as Jacksonville. It's a little bigger than that. I feel like, based on memory. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I guess thanks for tuning in. It's time to drop the hammer to High Limit. Yeah, I mean, something like that. It would work. I guess it's about it, ladies and gentlemen, though. Like the video, share the video, comment below, join the memberships. If you want to support in other ways, we got I'm Actually From Here Texas shirts, hats on the website. Just put out the brand new Professional Gaslighter as well, and the Blue 316 merchandise. Check all that out onto the website today. Links are in the description below. You can support with the membership or directly on PayPal or Venmo to join the support. Get your name up on the top of the screen. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I had to say. That's what I had to think. It's a very interesting scenario. I feel like there are phone calls being made. It's going to be very interesting to see what Tanner Holmes does today. We promoted the gravel show last night, and now I guess accidentally we promoted the Tanner Holmes show today. But Tanner Holmes is a good guy. Hopefully he can develop over the years. I was full bore for him in the 1A. He kind of let me down later in the year. We'll see what his plans are going into 2024 here in just the bottom of the hour. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. As always, be sure to subscribe, and we will catch you next time.
We can ride high, we can ride low. We can ride anywhere we need to go. We can ride all night up to the morning, as long as we make the show. We can be the best or we can be the worst. We can be the best thing you ever heard. With the motor singing and the grandstands ringing, it's hard to put it all in words. But this is how we ride, this is how we do. Riding mud, sliding up higher in the groove. Don't give a damn about the cash we're spending. With the time we got, we choose to play it on the go, to stay out on the run. We all high, wide, and handsome. Ain't telling you what's right or wrong or what to choose. Hey, but this is how we do. This is how we do. Out on the dirt ovals we play, life in the bright lights with no shade. So letting her go, letting her rip, letting her fly, tossing her in sideways, living the life, letting her ride, eyesight winning to die. want some drum and some